Hello and welcome back. In this video, we are going to go through the applicant profile page over here and to show you how this page works. Okay, so as you can see inside of Webflow, we've just created the skeletal structure and then we bind the data inside of Wized. If I just click on the X-ray over here, you'll be able to see all of the attributes present on this page. Firstly, what we're going to do in order to make this page work is, in the previous video, we already set up the parameter to send a recruiter to this particular page with that applicant's Airtable ID. So that will help us only show that applicant's information on that page. So the request that we're going to use on this page is load an individual applicant. And what we're going to do is to essentially create a filter where we're going to tell Airtable to get an item for the job from the job applications table, but use the parameter that we defined in the previous video for their Airtable ID as a filter. So now I'm only going to be able to see that information tied to a particular applicant. Okay, so for this request, every request has a trigger. So for this request, we set up the trigger to load the individual applicant, and that will load after the request of load recruiter applicants has finished loading. Right. Now to bind the data on the page. For the profile image, again, we set it as source. In this case, we're going to use the request that we just set up, which is load the individual applicant, and just get the profile image URL over there. The same goes for name. We set it up as plain text. All of these, we just bind them as you would with all of the other elements that we set up previously. Okay, so the only thing that we need to know on this page or be wary of is this part. Yes, the download resume is set up to the individual's resume field, so it just essentially opens up the applicant's resume and then a recruiter can view it. And then the profile link also is set up as a link and directs the recruiter to that applicant's portfolio link. Okay, so now we're going to touch on setting the application status of an applicant. Okay, so for this form, we're just going to go back into Webflow to show you how this is set up. Inside of Webflow, we have a form, and that form is with the ID of applicant status form. Please do not rename this because this is going to be referenced in a script that I'll show you now. And then at the very bottom, we also have a webhook over here that will essentially capture that form. And the webhook for this is this one, applicant hired, rejected, screening status control. Okay, so this webhook URL is the same one that we're going to use over here. And now we are going to open up this form to show you exactly how this is set up. On the page itself, if you just go to the page settings, scroll all the way down, you'll be able to see a script. This script is the same or sort of the same script that we have on the recruiter's job post details page, whereby it essentially takes the applicant's ID from the URL. So this, just explain it over here. If I just go to the applicant over here, and you can see that in the URL, we have an applicant ID over here. So what the script is doing is taking that ID and capturing it, and then putting it in an, an input field over here in the form. We have an input field here. Yeah, there. An input field with the ID or the ID of applicant ID. So that Airtable ID is going to be plugged into this input field. Another thing we have on this page is, okay, after that form has been submitted, it will reload the page essentially, and send that form to make, or send that information to make. And then inside of make, it will update the status of this applicant inside of Airtable. So if you're going to change this webhook URL, you need to change it here as well and make sure that it all corresponds with make. And if you're going to rename the applicant status form, please rename it here as well. Otherwise, this is not going to work. Okay, so for this form, we have 3 statuses: hired, screening, or rejected. And this form input has the attribute of Wized applicant status. All right, inside of make, what happens here is when the form is submitted, let me show you over here, and just to run this. So when this form is submitted, say this candidate is hired. Right now, the webhook captures the form, and then you can see that this is the information that I'm going to get. And then it will get the record inside of the job applications according to that applicant ID, and then update it with the status. So it will just add that status over here, and then send the webhook response as success. And the status for this applicant will be updated. Going back to Wized, we have this attribute that we defined inside of Webflow, right? And that is so that we can show what kind of status was set. And we're just going to add the input value for this input field. So it will be load individual applicant and then the status. And the status is rejected because I did not refresh the page. You'll be able to see that the status for this will now change to hired. And that is it for the applicant profile page. The next page we are going to go to is the Talk.js and MemberChat pages. So just going back to the talent pool page so that I can click on an individual candidate. If I click on this candidate over here, so recruiters are able to send messages to candidates. So if I go to message candidate over here, I'll essentially be able to open up a chat box with that candidate. So I can then ask them to send me a little bit more information about themselves as well. Okay, so we're going to start off with Talk.js first. On this page, we have a container. So inside of Webflow, if I just go to that page over here, we have this container of Talk.js with the attribute or with the ID of Talk.js container, but also the attribute of Wized Talk.js container. Okay, inside of Wized, we will have a load Talk.js recruiter container over here. And this is a function that we're going to use in order to set the information for Talk.js. So the information of the recruiter and the information of the candidate. This is the function that we're going to use. So on this page, we're essentially going to load that individual user or that individual talent that a recruiter wants to talk to. And then we're going to set their information, such as name, email, and their profile image as well. Okay, and that request will run every time this page is loaded. And this is needed in order to basically initiate Talk.js for a recruiter. Okay, this part is to open the chat box. Now, if a recruiter goes to their inbox for Talk.js, just going over to the inbox over here, on this page, you'll be able to see that there is the same type of container. But the difference is that this container, yes, does have the ID of Talk.js. And if you just open up the settings over here, you'll be able to see that the only thing present on this page is to open up their inbox. So this first page is to open up a jet box. And then the next page, this inbox, is to open up an inbox. So the inbox will show them all of their messages, whereas the chat box page will only show them a conversation with a particular member. Right, and now we're going to go back to MemberChat. So for MemberChat, it's this page over here. Okay, so for MemberChat, a few things you need to define. First of all, you need to make sure that you've created an account inside of MemberChat. And you can do that by going to memberchat.app and just create an account, because you are going to need your install code that you will place over here. So all of these scripts that are titled replace with your own, those are the ones that you please need to replace. So for MemberChat, it's this one that you're going to need to replace. And for Talk.js as well, you are going to need to create a project, because you're going to need your particular app ID over here defined as well. Okay, so once you've created your MemberChat account, and MemberChat does have a few tutorials and demos to see how to set that up properly, you are now going to have this container over here with the ID of MemberChat-app. And then on this page, what is going to be set is, so since the install code has already been set over here, we're going to be able to open the chat box for MemberChat. So if I just go to a particular user like this, and then I click on MemberChat. Okay, MemberChat doesn't work inside of Wized, so you need to preview this on the live website. Click on an individual member. Okay, and then I click on MemberChat with the candidate. That will open up a member chat box. And this is where I can now send messages to a user using MemberChat. So I can either set up, or you can either set up this template to be with Talk.js, or you can use MemberChat. You can use which one is more cost effective for you. But this template does give you 3 options. So you can just remove all of the chat functionalities and just use email, or just use Talk.js, or just use MemberChat. You do not need to use all 3 at once. All right. In the next video, I'll go over the page where a user or a recruiter can create and post a job, and show you what scripts run on that page as well. And then the last page we're going to use, or we're going to go through, is the settings page. And then we should be done with all of the recruiter pages. See you in the next one. Bye.